The dropship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere of the alien planet. Inside, the squad of human Marines sat in silence, performing last-minute checks on their weapons and gear. Their destination was a large base that belonged to the Kraax, a vicious insectoid species that the Marines would be attacking. Corporal James Wright looked around at the other Marines, all battle-hardened veterans with dozens of combat drops under their belts. Yet he could see a glint of fear and apprehension in some of their eyes. The Kraax had a reputation as nightmarish opponents who felt no fear or mercy. Still, Wright had confidence in his squad's abilities. As the dropship landed roughly on the planet's surface, he grinned. "All right, ladies, time to kill some bugs." The Marines poured out of the dropship, weapons raised. Their HUD showed no contacts yet, but it was only a matter of time. As if on cue, alien screeches echoed out from the tree line as a dozen Kraax warriors charged towards the human positions. The Marines opened fire, their electromagnetic railguns punching through the Kraax' thick exoskeletons. 2 of the aliens went down quickly, but the rest continued their advance, inhuman roars erupting from their mandibles. "Back up and find cover," Wright yelled, firing short controlled bursts from his rifle. The Kraax were shockingly fast, crossing the distance before the Marines could inflict many more casualties. Wright saw Private Jefferson get tackled by one of the Kraax warriors. Its claws and mandibles went to work as Jefferson screamed, trying desperately to push the creature off. Wright rushed over, grabbing the alien in a chokehold and yanking it back with all his strength. Its sharp limbs scraped against his armored suit, seeking flesh. With a roar, Wright snapped its neck and tossed the limp body away. Jefferson lay on the ground bleeding heavily from multiple gashes, but he was alive. "Medic," Wright called out, but there was no time to help Jefferson now. More Kraax were swarming from the tree line, 3 times as many as before. "Squad, tighten up your fields of fire. We need to bottle up that choke point. Move." The Marines repositioned around the corpse-strewn landing zone, overlapping their lines of fire to create interlocking fields that the Kraax would be suicidal to cross. But Wright knew that suicide tactics were a specialty of the aliens. Here's their inability to feel fear or retreat made them nightmarish opponents. The Kraax horde attacked as a single mass, ignoring the withering fire from the human weapons. They used the bodies of their own dead as cover, surging forward in a chittering tide. Several Marines were pulled down and dismembered by the endless claws and mandibles, themes of agony mixed with alien shrieks. "First, hold the line," Wright yelled, firing on full auto now. Dozens of Kraax fell, but dozens more took their place. The aliens were almost at point-blank range when Wright's rifle sputtered empty. As the Marines switched to desperate close combat, Wright felt something deep within his mind snap into place. A familiar warmth spread through his chest. His vision took on a heightened clarity and his muscles tensed. The first Kraax to reach him swung a scything talon at his neck. Effortlessly, Wright slipped inside its reach and slammed a fist into its torso. He felt the alien's carapace shatter under the blow. Without pause, he grabbed the next Kraax and threw it bodily into a knot of its companions. Wright roared as his blood surged with adrenaline. Fear was gone, replaced by a euphoric battle rage. He waded into the heart of the Kraax mob, smashing, tearing, breaking. No matter how many claws and fangs pierced his flesh, he felt no pain. The Kraax surrounding him fell back in shock. Never before had they encountered a prey creature that attacked with such speed and reckless power. Then Wright grabbed one of their warriors and ripped it in half, spraying glowing blue blood over its horrified comrades. The Xenos turned and fled in terror, their nerve completely shattered. Panting hard, Wright looked around the landing zone. Most of the Kraax lay dead or dying, with the rest retreated deep into the jungle. Of his squad, only 4 other Marines were still on their feet, all covered in neon blue blood and tattered bits of carapace. But they had carried the day against a force that should have annihilated them through numbers alone. As the adrenaline drained from his system, Wright suddenly collapsed. The pain and blood loss from a dozen wounds finally caught up to him, but he still grinned in satisfaction. The display of raw fury and power he'd unleashed was unlike anything the Kraax had experienced. It was a force that could change the course of the war. Several hours later, Wright lay in the medbay of the Marine ship Honor's Blade as it orbited the still contested planet. Despite his wounds, he only required limited treatment before returning to full duty. The ship's doctor regarded him with a mix of awe and unease as she reviewed his biomonitor data. "I've never seen such high stress toxin levels," she said. "By all rights, your heart should have exploded. and yet you fought on without pause or any thought for your own safety. Your species is unbelievable." Wright shrugged. It was just an adrenaline rush brought on by combat stress. I thought all sapient races had something similar, a physical response to danger that enhances their survival. The doctor shook her head. "No, Corporal, you humans are unique as far as the Galactic Council knows. When faced with a life or death struggle, your adrenal glands can produce potent chemicals that increase strength, deaden pain, and remove all sense of fear or restraint. No other known species has such a fight or flight instinct hardwired so deeply into their DNA. We Rhodians certainly don't. Why do you think your kind inspires such terror among enemy forces?" Wright frowned. He was familiar with the reputation that human troops had across the Orion arm of the galaxy. Ferocious, unrelenting, willing to endure horrific casualties, yet keep fighting against impossible odds. It was said that facing human Marines was like facing wild beasts instead of thinking soldiers. "I thought our training and technology gave us an advantage," he replied. "The top brass encouraged stories about humans being unstoppable killing machines to intimidate the enemy. But I guess a human hopped up on adrenaline is pretty nasty in close combat." The doctor peered at him intently. "During your last drop, witnesses said you ripped a Kraax warrior in half after being shot multiple times. Then you slaughtered dozens more in close combat without weapons or armor. Does that sound like normal behavior?" Wright shrugged. "Guess I was just having a really good day, ma'am." But in his mind, the implications sank in. The terror human soldiers invoked across the galaxy was more than just propaganda. When the adrenaline kicked in, humans like him became the stuff of nightmares. Word soon spread among the United Terran Federation's military leaders about Wright's feats during the Kraax drop. While humans had used the unique trauma response to great effect before, no single soldier had ever displayed such devastating power and lived to tell about it. Wright found himself summoned to FleetCom headquarters along with the Marines from his squad. Fleet Admiral Okiro nodded silently as Wright's squad mates described ripping the Kraax warrior apart. The video footage from their helmet cams was even more gruesome, yet Okiro seemed pleased rather than appalled. "The Kraax threat has grown beyond our projections," Okiro rumbled. "We need a new strategy to put fear into their hearts, or equivalent circulatory organs. They do not comprehend concepts like mercy or surrender. We must confront them with the savage fury of humanity itself." He magnified a captured image of Wright, in full adrenaline rush, his eyes blazing, bared teeth smeared with alien blood, his massive frame swollen with rage-fueled power. "This is how we will end the Kraax menace. We will weaponize humanity's primal fury and turn our soldiers into unstoppable apex predators from our species' ancient past. No Xeno mind can comprehend the tornado of violence about to descend upon them." He slammed a fist on the table. "I am ordering new biochemical combat stimulant regimens for all ground forces effective immediately. Kraax worlds will run blue with blood before we are done." The Admiral's eyes were wide with zeal as he spoke. The other officers listened with growing excitement, any ethical concerns drowned out in the rush. As Wright returned to his ship after the briefing, he felt uncertain emotions swirling within him. The thought of deliberately enhancing the adrenaline response during combat seemed dangerous, both to enemy forces as well as human troops themselves. It's unleashed, that genie might be impossible to put back in the bottle. 3 months later, Wright led his freshly augmented platoon on another raid against a major Kraax military base. His 120 Marines had undergone intensive biological modification to increase adrenaline production and deliver it more efficiently to the brain and muscles. From this day on, they settled for peace from the fear of the human warriors.